Okay, so we're going back to a phone call. Call in for the trivia.
Right.
We're going back to the call in for the trivia. I'll put the number up on the screen.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to know the name of it, really.
No.
Oh, yes, you do. You know who it is.
You
You know what it is. And but it's I don't want to say too much. I don't want to spoil the surprise. It'll be good. Viewer appreciation prize is what tonight? What are you giving away?
I'm giving away a mag light from Amsoil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one of those lights, which is telescopic and it's magnet and it's got a light and it's awesome. Yeah. And we're doing, and that's look at that how nice that thing looks, Frank. Beautiful, nice poster.
It's 6 o'clock, Susie baby.
Yeah.
Joey's got to roll.
And that poster from McCook, right?
The poster is compliments of Motorcyclist Illustrated and Mike McCook.
Yeah. So good. And that's it.
Okay.
And then we have.
That's it. I got to start the show.
I'm Jerry Maddox.
And I'm Ryder Maddox in sunny California.
And you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, hosted by Joe Abbate.
Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I am your host, Joe Abbate. Thank you for joining me tonight. And as always, Susie, the lovely and enchanting Susie, is with me. She's right here. Sue, no update on your recovery, is there?
I'm pretty much recovered. I just have physical therapy remaining, and that's it. I'm walking like a champ.
You are. And you know what? We can't see it on camera, but Susie has 2 shoes on today.
Yeah, for the first time in 10 weeks.
These are exciting times. These are exciting times at Casa Abbate when you can wear 2 shoes on the same day. But that's really great to know. Hey, Suze, I think we just mentioned it before we went on the air, but you got some. What are you giving away?
Oh, I'm giving away the Amsoil mag light.
Yeah.
For the viewer appreciation.
Right.
And I got some Bucanco swag for what's it worth, and I got this awesome poster for trivia.
Oh yeah,
tonight.
yeah.
Pay attention, guys.
All right, we've got all that and much more coming up.
Yeah.
On Vintage Motocross Q&A. I've got a lot of stuff to go over tonight. So many people sent in, and I'm so grateful to all of you. So many people sent in Moto Showcase bikes, questions, just all week long. It's been fabulous, and thank you so much for buying shirts. I want to thank all the sponsors of the show: Racer X International Motocross Museum and Motion Pro, Vinco, Full Circle Racing, Sirius Studios, Bultaco East, and Preston Petty Products. There's a link in the show description. It takes you directly to my PayPal account. Make a donation to the show in any amount. It will be greatly appreciated. In turn, I'll send you a couple of Vintage Motocross Q&A stickers. Thank you. The people who have continuously supported the show, and there's even some new ones up here now: John Cacavalle, Don Zabolski Jr., Tyler McGregor, Kurt Flash. We've got 3 or 4 new ones today. We got Lucas family. The Lucas Family Motocross Collection. Dave Mackinnon, Bryan, Webley, and Don Zabolski. I didn't get a chance to put them up last week, but they are here today. Tyler McGregor, Kurt Flash, and I thought there was somebody else. Lucas Family, Dave Mackinnon. Oh, and Webley and Zabolski. We just put them up, but they did purchase some shirts last week. They became show supporters. So for $49.95, like it says right back here over my head, you get a shirt and you get your name up on the board for like 90 days. And you get some other cool stuff that goes with that from Amsoil. Maybe you don't want to be a show supporter. You want to be a loser who just walks around in a shirt for $24. No, I'm only kidding. If you want a regular shirt, they're $24.95 in sizes up to double XL. $3 more for you people with the Raymond Burr-like status, okay? That's up to triple X and even quadruple X. You can get the cartoon on the gray, the yellow, the white, or the black, or you can get any combination that you like. You know how you keep that shirt nice and clean when you go out in the garage? You buy an apron, too, for $20. 3 ways to pay at Vintage Motocross Q&A. We've got a PayPal account. Susie has Zelle and Venmo. So you can get all that stuff. You can pay me. It'll be wonderful, and everybody will have a great time. Don't forget to keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. Tell us where you're watching the show from, what some of your favorite segments may be, anything you can about the show, or just share it, and we would love to hear what you have to say. Just How I See It. The Just How I See It segment is brought to you by two really great people, Steve Bauer and the 2025 Big Air Kids Fair. Steve is an extremely generous person. He goes down there every year, sets up a stunt show with some of the greatest talent in freestyle. Thank you, Steve Bauer and the Big Air Kids Fair. And also my friend Kurt Flash at Trail Rider Magazine. That's the way they say it. Trail Rider. That's the way Kurt says it. It's Trail Rider. It's a wonderful little publication. It's on your newsstand now, or you can get it. You can get it delivered right to your house. Now, just as I see it, or just how I see it. Big dust up last week in Denver. You've all heard about it. The mix up here, okay, between Hayden Deegan and I just drew a blank on the kid's name. What is his name, Sue?
What kid?
Hayden Deegan and the kid he crashed into, Cole Davies. Hayden Deegan and Cole Davies. Okay, when I first saw it, I got my underwear in a bunch over it, okay? When I saw the replay, he didn't exactly punt them into the cheap seats, but he nudged them. Here's the problem I have, okay? Number one, he's your teammate. There's 2 laps to go. You have enough points to win the championship, whether Davies wins or not, and all you have to do is finish this coming weekend in Utah. There was no need to get up inside of him like that and give him a little nudge, push him over the berm. Of course, all the couch racers, because you're not even bench racers, you're couch racers, you'll sit there and say, well, that's racing. He left the door open. Please spare me. He's your teammate. You've got plenty of points to win the championship, and there's another race next week. I don't know what's bigger on this kid, his ego or his mouth. The thing that made it the worst was when he went on to the podium afterward and he had to say what he had to say. And that's just how I see it. And you know what? One other thing. When other people want to bring up names like Howerton and Hannah and Battle at Saddleback, please, we're still talking about records that Hannah set 40 years ago. Howerton is a national champion in the 250 once and the 500cc class twice for Husky and Suzuki. Don't give me the Hannah, don't give me the Howerton routine, okay? And as far as the Joey Savaggi and the Zach Osborne thing from 2017, again, 2 different scenarios, and 2 wrongs don't make it right. They weren't on the same team. It was for a championship. It was the last turn before the finish line. I was not a fan of Zach Osborne after that. I had always been a fan and still remain a fan of Joey Savaggi. And that's how I see that, okay? We're going to move on with the next time try this segment. Somebody asked me about a PVL the other day, and I haven't run this in a little while. It's a good video. It describes all about a PVL. I think you're going to enjoy it. Just take a minute. On tonight's Next Time Try This segment, I want to talk to you about a PVL. If you're not familiar with a PVL, it is an electronic ignition that many people use to replace the points on their bike, or perhaps replace the Moto plat or some of the worn out ignitions that some guys have been using over the years. They get old and they just give out. Now, PVL is kind of expensive, as you can see there on the box, $519. I recently put one in a 1971 Harley-Davidson Baja 100 that I just restored. Now, I want to go over this slowly because I think it's some very, very important points here, okay? Number one, there are instructions with this. And if you're like most people, men and women, a lot of times when things come out of the box and look very uncomplicated, you will overlook the instructions. Don't. When you get the PVL, open the box, take out the instructions, and spend a half hour reading every page. There are some details in there that you're not going to want to miss, and there are some things that you've probably done over the years, like when you check spark for your bike, what's the first thing you do? You take out the plug, you lay it on the head, you give it a little kick, and you see if there's spark coming out at the end of the plug. That is not the case with a PVL, and you can do damage to it. That's why it's very, very important to read the instructions. Jordan, next slide. One of the first things I did when I opened it up out of the box, if you look down here, you'll see some green tape that goes around the rotor. Now I'm thinking to myself, this is only here to protect it in shipping or not to drop it or get anything on it when you're going to be assembling the unit. Not so. That tape is around there because it is about 0.010 of an inch. That is the clearance you need when that rotor is attached to your crank with the stator unit on there. Next slide, please, Jordan. You can see it right here. Around the edge of that rotor, right where those black legs are with the two arrows on them, it needs to be 0.010 of an inch clearance all the way around. What is 0.010 of an inch? If you're not familiar with something like that, it's a piece of paper folded over or 2 sheets of paper. That's how much clearance you have between that rotor and those legs from that stator. And that's why they put that tape around there too, because when you put it together, that tape should not be hitting any place on those plastic legs. Don't take the tape off. Make sure you have the clearance when you put everything in there. Next slide, please, Jordan. One of the problems you may have when you go to put this rotor on the end of your crank is that your crank has a keyway in there from your previous ignition. Many times the key from that keyway can wear, it can get loose, and it can cause a burr right where that keyway actually goes. If there is a burr there, even the slightest burr, you're not going to be able to get the rotor on clearly and squarely, and you're not going to be able to get that clearance of 0.010 of an inch that you need. If there's even the slightest wobble in the rotor, you're going to have a problem. Here's how you can rectify that problem if you do have it or there's any kind of a burr on that rotor. And by the way, the PVL rotor does not have a keyway. It's got a taper fit. It fits extremely tightly once you pop it on to that crank. Jordan, go to the next slide for a second. Leave it right there. Here's what you're going to use. Valve grinding compound. Okay, you can buy that in any auto parts store. This is what the end of your crank would look like sticking out of your engine. This is going to be your rotor. You're going to put that valve grinding compound right where that rotor sits on the crank, and you're going to begin to spin it. You should spin it in, you could spin it in both directions, but start off going in one direction and then take it off, examine it, and you're going to see that it's going to have or should have a nice matte finish. It should look uniform all the way around. If it doesn't, put a little more valve grinding compound on there, start spinning it the other way, right to left, left to right, and you have a nice, smooth, even finish on the end of that crank. I think in the next slide, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There it is right there. This happened to actually be one I did to me. I had never really dealt with a PVL before in a situation where it had to have this type of clearance, or it was nice and smooth, had a nice dark gray finish to it when I finished using the valve grinding compound. What do we got next, Jordan? Okay, this is it after I put it together. I don't have the legs on yet with the stator, but everything fit nice and squarely on there. And when I pushed that rotor onto that crank, and I'm not talking about tapping it on, I'm talking about just popping it on there, I couldn't get it off. I had to use a little puller that came with it, and with just a couple of turns, it came off. But on a taper fit, it should fit so tightly, so smoothly, and go on so firmly, you shouldn't really be able to pull it off again with your hands. I'm not saying that you're going to need a puller and 2 big wrenches, but it may take a little bit to get it off if it truly fits on there correctly. Here it is after I got it all sorted. I remember that guy. And there it is, my Harley Baja 100 restoration. I did that for a great gentleman named Mike Morey from New York. It is being picked up tomorrow at noon. We'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I'm Barry Higgins. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
Yeah. Susie was talking to me during the commercial, and the camera came back on, and I'm like, Vinco, keep the ride going with over 1,000 products in their catalog. That's Vinco.com. We are going now to the What's It Worth segment of the show. What's It Worth segment is brought to you by Full Circle Racing. Thank you, Tom McAllister. And Full Circle Racing, you are now our longest running sponsor. Thank you, Tom McAllister. This is the segment of the show where we ask you, the viewers at home, to guess how much you think this bike recently sold for. And in turn, we will give you a nice package of goodies, compliments of Steve Grandis and Bultaco East. Okay? The bike we are talking about this week is right here. 1973 Mako 440. And I want to tell you a little bit about this bike from the picture here. And then we're going to move on with the rest of the pictures, and you can tell me how much you think this bike recently sold for. It is a 440cc Mako. It's never been started. Working magnesium clutch and ignition covers. The frame's been modified way back when from Mike Chamberlain. Works magnesium Coney shocks, long travel suspension, US Sport swing arm. It's got a titanium swing arm pivot as well as a rear axle. Magnesium rear backing plate, works titanium handlebars. GP style tank from 74. 80% of all the nuts and bolts on this bike are titanium. It is definitely a Mike's Racing Center motorcycle. It has the headstay on it, and it's got the Mike's Racing Center chain guide as well. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a brief background on this bike, so that it's going to help you kind of decide what is going on here. It was Gary Kortz from SoCal Mako who actually found this bike, brought it back to his shop, and decided he wanted to restore it. He knew it was a Mike's Racing Center bike at the time. He did take it back. He got the majority of the parts either from the factory or he had them in stock. It was to make it a replica of an exact bike that you could buy from Mike Chamberlain in 1973. So whether it's the backing plate or the chain guide, this was all works stuff that Mike had access to back then, and many of the riders had that frame modification done from Mike Chamberlain, like Steve Stackable and others who rode on that circuit. I think Jim West was another one. Anyway, as you can see, as we go down through the pictures, there's the sand cast aluminum Coney shocks that were on the bike at the time. Here are the titanium handlebars. And when the bike was done, it of course did belong to Gary Kortz, but Mike Chamberlain wanted the bike, and he wanted to truly have a bike that he modified way back in 1973. Here's another great picture of it. So what we have here is a beautifully period correct, restored. It's better than a refurbishment. It is restored with a lot of NOS parts. It is an original spec bike from Mike Chamberlain, and I just told you how much the bike sold for, and that Mike's Racing Center. Okay, so how much do you think the bike recently sold for? I just put the thing up, I know, but how much do you think the bike recently sold for, Susie? Before I put the picture up, did somebody see it, and did they say?
Well, let's see, Philip Liberty said 12.
Philip Liberty said 12. Okay,
Yeah.
The bike actually sold for $13,500. Okay, $13,500 was the price, and that included a broker's fee of about 7.5%. The broker, was extremely generous, only taking a minimal commission from the buyer and taking nothing from Mike Chamberlain. Therefore, 13.5 was the price. And yes, I was the broker on the deal. Who got closest to that going over?
Without you, without them seeing.
Well, yeah, without them seeing, yes.
Where was that line? I think it was Phil Liberty because
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to break to the Full Circle Racing commercial. You keep taking a look at that, okay? And when we get back, we'll figure out who's going to get some nice stuff from Steve Grandis and Bultaco East. All right?
Yeah.
We'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? Answer simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle Racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle Racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
That's Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. It's on-road, off-road, vintage or modern, dual-purpose, enduro, whatever it may be. Full Circle Racing Limited and Tom McAllister. We are going to move on right now to one of our favorite segments of the show. You know what that is, don't you? That's right. It's trivia. Trivia is coming up right now. But, Susie, before I get to the trivia, did anybody get 13.5?
No.
So Phil Liberty was the closest?
12, yeah.
At 12?
Yeah.
Nobody got closer than 12?
No, because.
Okay, that's it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, no?
No, Al Roof, I think he saw the slide, and Alan Huie, I don't know if he saw the slide.
I think they probably saw the slide.
Yeah.
Plus, there's two guys named Al. That is suspicious in and of itself. Trivia returns to Vintage Motocross Q&A. We're going to be doing it every week because we have a nice supply of posters, and those are compliments of Michael McCook and Motorcyclist Illustrated. Motorcyclist Illustrated is on Facebook. It's a wonderful and very diverse page. And Mike McCook is a very diverse guy. He also has a website. It's a little bit older, but it's got some cool stuff on it. McCook Racing. The prize tonight, of course, is the poster, and there it is. Trivia returns. There's the poster, 18 by 24. You want to get a look at it again? I'll get Susie on camera. There it is, right next to Susie.
There it is.
Okay, 18 by 24. The legendary. Good job, Suze. The legendary Jimmy Weinert and Tony DeStefano. And they're battling it out. So this is a real interesting trivia I have for you guys tonight. Because number one, you're going to call in. All right. And here's the number. So either put the number in your phone right now before I show you what I'm going to show you for the trivia. Put the number in your phone right now or write it down. All right. You got it? And I'll bring it up again. Here's the trivia. You see this picture right here? Now, you thought I was going to ask you who's the guy with the number one on the Honda riding that. We all know it's Gary Jones. You guys are way sharper than that. You know what I want you to tell me? I want you to tell me who the guy is in the background in the red pants. Who's that guy in the background with the red pants? Who is that? He sometimes watches the show, and that's all I'm going to say right now. You got to call in, though, okay? 925-784-2195. One operator is standing by, and she is a doozy. Let's move on to, this is another one of my favorite. All these segments are favorites of mine, actually. Dave's Classic Corner. This is brought to you by Dave Boydston and AMS. Be sure to visit Dave Boydston online, follow Dave Boydston on Facebook. He's got a lot of great content out there. He's been out there doing a lot of live videos in and out of auctions and different types of things, and just bringing us a lot of really good content throughout the day on his personal page, Dave Boydston. In the meantime, Dave has been very generous to us and sending us some interesting things every week for Dave's Classic Corner. So let's get down to Dave's Classic Corner, and we'll have a little bit more for you after that.
This is a Series 3, third version of the twin pipe CZ. It now has the more notable steel tank that's on the side piper. It has a fiberglass airbox. It has steel number plates. It now has the two-piece rear fender setup on it, which I got to glue that little piece in place. Same shocks, same rear wheel. No stripe on the wheel on this one either. Same carburetor, same foot pegs, brake, shift lever, kicker. All the handlebars are the same. You now have the fender that appears on the side piper. We're familiar on that. Chrome steel rims, chrome spokes. These are actually a stock set of wheels on this bike. These are not a restored set of wheels. After doing a lot of these bikes, you come across a clean part every once in a while and you just hold on to it till you get enough to build the bike. And that's what I did. But this is the third version, probably the most common version to see of a 250 twin pipe CZ. Same deal, cast iron cylinder, aluminum head. Looks giant, looks like it's off the wrong bike. Ignition is giant because of flywheel. See, this is a different brake pedal on this one. See the shape of that? Little different shape, and the fiberglass airbox looks good sticking out of there. And the pipes mount in the front are actually bolt to the front engine mount. Has its original Barham tires, not original, but brand new, just like them. And then I got a seat guy that does a pretty good job of getting the seat the way I remember it. Rock hard plastic grips. Sometimes still look like new. There you go. Second version. No, third version. Third version. Most common version of a 250 CZ. Twin piper. Next bike will be a side piper's coming out in 68.
Well, I cut that one off a little too early, Dave. I am sorry, but that was the end of the video. Now, the phone's been ringing off the hook, but no one has guessed who the person is in the picture for trivia. I'm going to bring it up again, give you another look at it, and I'll let you also see the phone number. We want to know who this guy is in the background. This is Gary Jones at Daytona. Who's this guy in the background? Can I give you a hint? He often watches the show. I have interviewed him, and this other guy over here with this t-shirt on, that's a pretty good hint of who the guy might be on the right with the red pants. If you know who it is, call in. 925-784-2195. That's 925-784-2195. One more hint. The guy is really known for riding more obscure bikes, although he has had a very popular. He's been with Honda. He's been with Yamaha. He's been with a few guys, but he's really more of an obscure type rider. Susie, do we have somebody?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we do have somebody who thinks they know who this person is. And let's get him over here.
Hold on.
We'll get him on the phone, and we'll give away. Oh, we're giving away the poster, right?
Yeah.
Let me have him.
I can't.
What? You can't get rid of the other
Are you
people?
there? Okay.
Let me have it.
Wait a minute. I can't get him on speakerphone. How come?
You can't get this guy on speakerphone.
No, don't Don't answer it. That's somebody else.
This is somebody else? Is this somebody else, or is this the person?
That's him.
Hey, Doc.
Hey, it's Joe Abbate.
Hey,
You're
Joe.
live. You're live on the air at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Joe.
All right. Who am I speaking with?
Al Huie.
Al Huie. All right, Al. Who's the guy in the red pants back there?
Roll
It is. That is Rokon Don. That is Don Kadowski. Thank you for calling in, Al. We will get you a poster, okay? And
Got you, Joe.
Susie, I think has your address. If she doesn't, we'll get it and we'll get you out a poster. That is it. Rokon Don. I'm going to put him up on the screen right now, and you can see him right there. Hey, Al, thanks for watching the show, okay?
Got you.
Thanks, brother. There he is. It is Rokon Don Kadowski on the right there. There he is in the red pants. The hint I gave you was because this guy on the left here has a Harley Davidson shirt on. I thought that might be a little interesting or a hint, but that is Rokon Don Kadowski. Here's a picture of Don with Pete Noneman down in Daytona not too long ago. And Don, he's all over the place with that little Kodak camera. He was on the grassy knoll on that fateful day, November 1963. Don Kadowski, thanks for being a good sport. Alan Huie, congratulations for being our winner for tonight's trivia. Let's move on with the show. We get to hear the problem segment, which is brought to you by Motion Pro. Be sure to visit them online at motionpro.com. And don't forget, there's still 20% off across the board on everything except custom-made cables at Motion Pro. Question number 1. Paul Delanoy. Hi, Joe. What is the closest to OEM for 1976 YZ125 satin black, semi-gloss black for the frame? Well, satin black is more like the engine. Satin and semi-gloss is a lot like satin. Okay. Now, what you don't want to make the frame is, of course, is flat black. The engine on this particular bike is a little less shiny than the frame. I restored this bike. That's a semi-gloss or a satin finish on the engine. The frame was done in a gloss black. But if you're doing this out of a gun and you're having a professional do it, you're going to have to go down and look at different shades of black. And there are different glosses available. And it can also be adjusted through your clear coat if your painter is using a 2-stage clear coat. So take a look at that. Yes, it is glossy, but it is not vibrantly shiny like a new Cadillac. Okay. So take a look at that. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're having it powder coated, tell your powder coater that you want 70% or 75% gloss, not 100%. That's going to make it real shiny. And I don't think there's anything between 75 and 100. So if it's like 75 or 80 or somewhere in there, you're going to get just the right amount of gloss on your frame. Thank you for the question. Let's move on. Mike Bogia. Hey, Joe, where can I get a rear XL rim for my 1974 CR125 with some spokes are they to be cut to length, or do you have to cut them once you get them? No, I've never heard of, I've heard of people cutting spokes to make them work in certain instances, but you want an XL rim, you get that from Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. And while there are other people who sell things like that, Tom McAllister has everything all your big SoCal vendors have. In fact, he is a representative and he is a dealer. Look, it's no secret. Okay. He's a dealer for Buchanan. So anything Buchanan gets, Tom McAllister has. He can offer you lacing and truing for an incredible price. And the spokes, the nipples, and the XL rim that you're looking for. Mike Bogia, thanks so much for that question. 20% off across the board at Motion Pro. That's on everything except custom-made cables. Upon checkout, go to MP9135. That's MP9135. And you get 20% off across the board. Thank you, AMSOIL and Russell Waters, for your years of support here on the show. And don't forget, AMSOIL is not just oil. They've got all types of cleaners, lubricants, oil additives, and so much more at AMSOIL, the first in synthetic since 1973. Fred Hudgens and Derfs. I understand you're starting your own race series in the very near future. Get in touch with me, Fred. I'd like to either be a sponsor of that series while you will be a sponsor of this show. Okay? Let's get something worked out. Speaking of works, we have the Works For Me segment with Terry Good. This is where Terry Good and I sit down briefly a little bit earlier in the day, and we take a look at some very special parts. Over the past couple of weeks, we took a look at a Sandcast magnesium carburetor. Last week, we took a look at Roger DeCoster, or a swing arm that came from the RH or RN race bikes from 1978. That one happened to be from the Roger DeCoster collection. So we're going to take a look now at what Terry and I were talking about a little bit earlier today. And we're going to find out what that is in just a second. I am really... Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to hear from the International Motocross Museum.
Hi, I'm Warren Reed.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
International Motocross Museum is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. Be sure to visit them online at internationalmotocrossmuseum.org. Here's one of the dioramas that you might see, something very, very similar to this at the International Motocross Museum when it opens later on this year. I'm having a little technical difficulty bringing up that video right now. We could have it for you a little bit later on in the show. And if I cannot bring it up, it will be on the Facebook page the second I get off doing this show. Then I know I can definitely do it, okay? So forgive me for that. In the meantime, I have something marvelous going on for you. The Moto Showcase is here, brought to you by Preston Petty Products. And tonight we've got a really interesting story that was sent in to us by Al Roof. And Al Roof has this motorcycle right here. It's a 1976 Yamaha IT400C. It is a Chris Carter ISDT gold medal tribute bike. It is built by Al Roof. I'm going to go through some of the slides. And I'm going to read you what Al has written to me, and you'll get a little bit of a better idea of what's going on here. Although this bike was built, then sold over 15 years ago, I thought the interesting backstory and ties to the show sponsors like Motion Pro, Preston Petty Products, and author Keith Geisner might interest viewers all throughout the years. This is a 1976 IT400C that made its way through the hands of 4 members of the Blue Ridge Pathfinders Motorcycle Club, which I founded in 1991. As many of us did when re-entering the dirt biking in the early 90s, the late Steve Miller bought the big IT as a cheap bike to thrash it. Shortly thereafter, the bike lost spark and it ended up abandoned in Bill Blythe's shed. In 2008, Billy offered the bike and 2 others to me just to get them out of his way. When Mark Price learned the PE75 that I had was in the mix, he decided that he wanted to buy it. Since I already had sold the PE and Mark had done so much for me over the years, I had offered him the IT for free. As we loaded the bike up, and this is the bike in the condition that it was in, as we loaded the bike up, I noticed that the kill wire had been pinched under the handlebar by a zip tie, and that could be why the bike was not getting spark. A few hours later, after Mark got home, he called me, and the big beast was alive, and it did start. After going through the engine, painting the frame, and rebuilding the wheels, another project caught Mark's eye, and he offered to sell the IT to me. Thus began the journey, and it was a long one. First with Mark, then with me. This resulted in my take of the Chris Carter International 6-Day Trial gold medal tribute bike. I sourced many parts, including the rear fender and replica front fender and the extension and so many other goodies that I tried to get for the bike. Much of it I got from Speed and Sport Yamaha. Others I found on eBay. What you don't see here are very well, maybe what you do see here may very well be the last NOS gas tank and side panels in the world. I'm proud to say that the bike was on display at AMA History's motorcycle exhibit in 2009 for the Progressive Insurance International Motorcycle Show in Greenville, South Carolina. The photos you see here were taken by my friend, photographer Benjamin Siegel, for my submission of an article into VMX magazine. But Don and Peg Miller of Metro Racing made the Yamaha kit for my niece, Hannah, and I had that picture here just a moment ago. There she is, the lovely Hannah. She was the model for the shoot. Sadly, since the text of my article with less impressive photos had already appeared in July of 2009 issue of Trail Rider magazine, my article and these photos never appeared in the pages of VMX. 12 years later, one of my favorite authors, Keith Geisner, told me that he had read my Trail Rider magazine article while doing research for the chapter, The Carter Connection, to his book, Discovering 6 Days. If you'd like to learn more about Chris's work developing the IT and the actual bikes Chris rode into the gold at the 51st ISDT in Zellwig, Austria, get your hands on a copy of Discovering 6 Days. You can see it right here. We were giving them away for a long time here on the show. You'll be glad that you did that. I also have my Trail Rider magazine article. If anybody would like to see it, I could send them a digital copy of that. Working as an office manager and an F&I guy at Special Events Coordinator for Suzuki Kawasaki of Gastonia, I was hit hard by the Great Recession about 30 years ago at the dealership. Eventually, it closed its doors in 2009. There's a good picture of Chris Carter on that bike back in Austria. Anyway, Al Roof, ended up selling the bike to make ends meet, although I wish I still had this beauty. I will forever be thankful for the cash flow that it provided and the friendship that it kindled. The bike now resides in the Allen Drain collection. And you did do a beautiful job on this bike, Al. Just look at the shock. It's the correct color blue, as it was on Chris's bike. The details to the engine, the details to things like this, the drilled washers and the 8mm heads on the side panels. Another shot of the airbox, the correct tail light on the rear with the Preston Petty fender. And here it is in its glory. Al Roof's rendition of the Chris Carter of Motion Pro IT 400, a gold medal winning bike. Thank you, Al Roof, for all you do for us here at the show, for your shares, and for sending us in some really cool stuff. In the meantime, I want to thank Bultaco East and Steve Grandis. Be sure to visit them online at bultacoeast.com. If you click on parts and you scroll down, you'll find VMX specials. We have a special every week. We've had one for the past 5 weeks. You'll always see them popping up on our page at Vintage Motocross Q&A. This week's special is 1980s style MX plates. Regularly just $25, now slashed $19.95. That's $19.95 for those plates, and that shipping included, only from Steve Grandis and Bultaco East. Did you know? Did you know is brought to you by Jeff Kokoski. The Did You Know segment is sponsored by SiriusStudios.co. Some of the coolest off-road swag you will ever have on your body, Susie. Really great shirts, hats, hoodies. The embroidery and the stitching on it is second to none. I just love everything about Larry Winter and Sirius Studio. Did you know? You know about K&N air filters? Did you know? Although they're no longer in the presence of the off-road motorcycle world, they were once very, very big. You probably would recognize the K&N icon, the orange and red logo with the white lettering. But did you know how K&N got its start? Our story begins in the mid-50s with Ken Johnson and Norm McDonald. They crossed paths while competing at the Southern California dirt track event. They began putting together and racing 3 or 4 nights each week and soon developed a great working relationships, as Ken was the mechanic and Norm was the better racer. By 1957, the pair decided to open up a motorcycle shop in Loma Linda, California. By combining the first letters of their names and the first letters being K&N, they had K&N Motorcycles. Initially, they only did motorcycle repair, but soon they began to fabricate handlebars and fairings. As business began to grow through the early 60s, they eventually would open up a bigger shop nearby Riverside. And I think we have a picture of that. Well, we have a picture of their Yamaha shop. And that was a dealership, and it became very, very successful. Now, while they were still both racing and supporting local dirt track for the off-road crowd, Ken began to recognize the shortcomings of OEM and aftermarket air filters. Prior to the modern-day foam filter, air filter media back then was just paper. It quickly plugged. And for the desert guys, it was just a nightmare. It just fell apart. But K&M boys really got to work, and they came up with some really, really cool stuff. and it performed so much better by 1967. After experimenting with numerous types of filter media, they settled on an oil cotton design that would capture the contaminants very efficiently. You could wash it and you could reuse it, which is something that nobody was doing at that time. The original K&N high-flow air filter was born. By 69, they sold off their interest in the Riverside, California repair shop. That's when they opened up that dealer that I showed you this picture of a little while ago. By comparison, a typical throwaway paper air filter, K&N filters were constructed of multiple layers of washable pleated cotton that trapped the contaminants between the layers and allowing a high volume of airflow to pass through them. By the 90s, Ken and Norm had retired and divested themselves in that business and turned the region over to a wonderful fella named Jerry Moll. Now, a lot of racing went on, and I think here's a picture of Jerry Moll when he's working there, or Norm and Ken were working there. And I think I had another picture here of Ken working, but no. Anyway, Jerry pioneered the use of this material called plastisol. It was to create a flexible frame around the surrounding filter. And you can only imagine how good that worked. In keeping with Ken and Norm's desire for a long-lasting quality product, Jerry continued to drive the company forward with new innovations all the time. 5 decades later, K&N was still innovating, an industry leader in the filtration technology. In addition to the filters, they began to manufacture other products like intake systems. They supplied to 30 countries throughout the world. Wow. Incredible. Interesting twist to the story of K&N filters was when Ken and Norm owned the motorcycle shop and dealership in Riverside. During races, they used to pit next to an up-and-coming racer that wanted to become an aircraft mechanic. Fortunately, the off-road motorcycle world, Ken and Norm recognized this guy, thought he would be a great protege, and eventually he would become a partner in K&N. The racer had a grin from ear to ear that stretched between his ears. He was a larger-than-life personality, and he was arguably one of the most recognizable people in AMA history. Who are we talking about? I don't believe I don't have a picture of him. We are talking about Malcolm Smith. This is not Malcolm Smith because this is a road racer, but we are talking about Malcolm Smith, and a young Malcolm Smith did go to work for Kenny and Norm at K&N. K&N even sponsored Malcolm Smith motorsports and various races due to the strong connection between Malcolm, Ken, and Norm. And there you have it. That is the entire story about K&N, a really good one too, brought to you by Jeff Kokoski. And that is the Did You Know segment.
Way to go, Jeff.
All right. We are going to move right along here right now. We've got the expansion chamber. I could use such a rest. We've got the expansion chamber coming up with Roger Neff, who always brings us some really, really great stuff. So let me get myself lined up here with the wrap suspension video. And we've got a really nice tip. It's something that really is applicable for your vintage bikes that have certain preload adjustments, as well as your a little bit more modern stuff. And you'll see why and how this works and why you should never adjust a shock when it's hot. I never knew about this. Roger Neff does.
Hey, Brappers, how you guys doing? We're out here in the Brap shop. I'm here. I'm just trying to get zoomed in on this. We got a fun little segment here for Joe Abate's Vintage Motocross Q&A. And today what we're talking about is a shock that's had the preload collars get stuck on the shock body. You can kind of see the threads here. This area, the threads are all boogered up. So how this typically happens is, one, somebody's trying to change their preload on a hot shock. Never adjust the preload on your shock when it's hot. Always let it cool down completely. And number two, a dirty shock. So if there's dirt in these threads, it's a great way. It's only a 1.5 millimeter pitch. And it's a great way for these things to get stuck, these preload collars. What happened is this aluminum collar, this one's aluminum, this one's steel, is this aluminum one galled when somebody's trying to adjust preload. So the way I went about fixing that is using what's called a thread file. You guys ever seen one of these? This is one of my favorite tools. This tool is used nearly daily in my shop for one reason or another. But it has various pitches. It starts at a 0.75 millimeter pitch and goes all the way up to a 3.0 millimeter pitch, right? So these little teeth are on different pitches. This shock body happens to be a 1.5. So I the grooves, you know, and I would work that aluminum. So what it was is there was aluminum still stuck, and then obviously the threads were kind of messed up. messed up. But I can get this preload collar past this section now. I can do it by hand, looks like, for the most part.
Come on.
I was having to use my preload collar tool, but this guy here from Race Tech, I ran this steel collar past it a couple times. I didn't want to use the aluminum one because one is kind of messed up. But this helps kind of finish the process of the thread filing. You definitely don't want to use, if this was aluminum collar, I would not be doing this. You can see that we can kind of get past that now. I typically do not loosen preload collars. I have a spring compressor to avoid this very problem. I'm here servicing the shock. Sometimes I don't even see. I can see that they're messed up in this one. So I'm doing the guy a favor so he can adjust the preload on his shock. But I had just a few little pieces of aluminum from the thread filing, getting it out of the threads, that this guy here was getting stuck on me. So I had to use some air and a little suspension clean from Maxima. This is my favorite shop cleaner. It doesn't hurt seals, any rubber parts. Works good for cleaning stuff up. But I cleaned off the threads and blew it off, and now we can, the more I run the steel one past there, the easier it will be. But anyways, this is a great way to fix threads, not only on a shock body, but you can use these thread files on, on any bolt, axle, maybe an axle's got kind of peened over a little bit. Great way to fix stuff. So inexpensive tool. They make them for SAE and metric. Definitely gets used a lot in my shop. I've had this one. Wow, I don't know. Look at that. It's even made in the USA. We got to love that these days. But I've had this for probably 30 years. Been a long time. Bought it when I was a kid. And I think the first time I bought it feds on a Chevy pickup. I taken the steering wheel off and I was beating on the end of the shaft and messed up some threads. And I bought this to fix those threads. I'm pretty sure. Anyways, you guys keep it brappy. Get one of these in your toolbox. Have one in your shop. Mine usually sits right up here on a magnet at hand's reach because I do use it a lot. Keep it brappy, you folks, and enjoy the rest of Joe Abate's Vintage Motocross Show.
I love the videos from Roger Neff, and Brap does such a great job, so enthusiastic, and does a great job of that. I wanted to mention that segment of the show is, of course, brought to you by Brap Suspension and Roger Neff, as well as Steve Wise and Moto Fellowship, who's on every Tuesday at 5:30. While that video was playing, I went deep underground into our where we keep all of our computers and all the wires and all the hard drives and all that. And I had to go in there with a flashlight, and it was dusty and had cobwebs. And when I got done, you know what I found? I found the video from me and Terry Good from this morning. Here we go. Very cool. Yeah. Terry, thank you for joining us again for another installment of Works For Me. I tried it. It worked.
Glad to be here.
The last couple of weeks, we talked about carburetors, and we had that amazing RN RH swing arm last week. It only weighed 7 pounds. Something that always it sort of captured my eye, and I often wondered why, and I did some research on it. But having you here to explain it is going to answer a lot of questions. And the topic is this ring, this reinforcement ring that is around the hubs of the Suzuki RH and RN models. And it certainly looks trick. The hub is huge, but really, what was the purpose and when did that begin?
Okay, it began immediately in 1970 with Joel Robert, and he told me that. I never noticed those rings back then, but he said that the hubs were breaking, and they put these rings on. They didn't want anyone to know that they were there, so they painted them black. And he told me that on the phone one day, and so after I hung up with him, I went back through my archives, and sure enough, there's a picture of him on the RN70. And if you look at that front hub, you can see the rings there. And
you can just about make it out. And
Yeah.
But you know what, Terry, and we've talked about this a little bit before when I've been out there, and we could make a whole show on this, but I want to kind of work from the outside in. Explain to the viewers that let's start with the tire. I mean, were there special tires made by whoever was providing tires for Suzuki at that time? Were there special compounds and knobs made for certain riders?
Oh yes, a lot of the tires would be provided to the team basically for free, and then there would be riders like in this particular case, that tire is a Pirelli.
Okay.
So Suzuki would test those with guys like DeCoster or Garrett Wilsink. And a lot of those tires, including that one there, that's a Pirelli Pentacross, but it's a prototype.
This one's the Pirelli?
Yeah, that's a Pirelli Pentacross right there,
Okay.
I believe. And so that they would have special compounds. The tread pattern, if it was would be the same, but many tires would provide experimental tread patterns, and I have some of those. I know some of the early Pirelli experimental tires had Kevlar, super lightweight, reinforcing, baked inside the rubber and things like that. And so, yes, those tires were very high tech, experimental, and, being a factory rider, you had the privilege of trying all kinds of things.
Now, were the rims, Terry, were the rims special? I mean, they just appear to be production did rims, but were there different widths and weights, and what kind of happened with the rims along the way?
Yeah, the rims were also, especially on these Suzukis here, you'll see a massive welded bead where the rim, is joined together. It's an extruded piece of aluminum and it's bent and then welded. And on a production rim, it'll be welded and then ground down or something like that. But on these, I don't know if I don't see it there.
I don't think I got a picture of any of that welding, but I have seen it in some of your other photographs.
Go back to the other picture there. You could see it a little bit.
This one?
Yeah, that one. Right below the DID sticker on the left. There's a bead there, and that will be raised up from the rim. They won't finish it off or anything like that in many cases. So those, and then they had their choice of custom width, and that was particularly beneficial in the back. They would have a production rim back then for a back tire would be a 2.15 generally. Well, the factory guys had the option of a 2.50 and also a 2.75 in some cases. And that was to leave a larger tire footprint on the ground to get more traction. Yeah.
Although it's a little off topic, while we're here on this picture, obviously this is some kind of reservoir for oil for the front forks. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, it wasn't really a reservoir as it was. It was an anti-dive system.
Oh.
So in braking into so the forks wouldn't collapse going into the corners and so much. And there was that little gizmo bolted to the bottom of the fork slider there would keep pressure on that, everything inside the fork leg at that point. So that's what that was for. And you don't see, I'm not sure I've ever seen a picture of Roger racing with that, but that's his RN 79. And he said they work pretty good. So I'm not sure.
Let's move on here. I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I'm not sure why he didn't use them that much that year. I know he used the Reby a lot because he had a shoulder injury before the season. I think he broke his, I don't know. Yes, he used those. That really helped him with that injury he had. And you'll see his riding style was kind of crouched a little bit more than normal then. And that was because of that injury. He suffered that injury right before the Grand Prix season started in Holland.
Okay.
And so those forks, he said you could hit a curb, a street curb, flat out with that bike, and it would just be a little blip, whereas a normal one, you'd do an endo. So on certain tracks, like hard pack tracks, that Reby worked a lot better. And on softer tracks, the conventional worked better. So all that'll be explained in the IMM.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the spokes, and then we'll get right down to the hub and the nitty gritty of what's going on there. Anything special about the hubs and, the spokes and nipples on these bikes?
The nipples are aluminum. The spokes are pretty thin, but I wouldn't say there's anything special, just typical spokes. The rim lock that you could see there is probably titanium.
The rim lock?
Yes. And the thing that the rim lock is threads into under, on the back side of the rim, that would be cast magnesium. They're very light.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get down to the reason why I wanted to talk about this part today. We are talking about this. I thought it was for reinforcement. This trim ring around the hub. Here's a good shot of the magnesium hub and the spokes. But is that hub stainless steel or is it steel? What is it, Terry?
That ring, that particular one, is aluminum. The ring is. Yeah. The hub would be sand cast magnesium. They would generally cast the works part number with an XR in the middle there, you can see, into that. And then it would be machined off that you could see where the spokes go through. Now, the reason that ring is there, a lot of people say it's so the spokes wouldn't pull through and other various reasons, but the real reason is those hubs were machined or sand cast in magnesium and machined, and then they were drilled. Those spokes would always put an uneven pressure around the edges of the spoke holes. So they would, by putting an uneven pressure on those spoke holes, that would create a high stress point wherever that uneven pressure was. That high stress point would often cause the hub to crack.
And they discovered this way back when Joel was riding the 70?
That's right.
Wow.
And on his bike, I'm pretty sure, I wish he was around to ask him.
Yes.
But I'm pretty sure those rings were steel back in his day, and then they would paint them. But the one that you showed on DeCoster's bike, that's aluminum. Sometimes they're anodized.
Yes.
A dark brown or something like that. But that particular one right there is aluminum, and that is placed there. They're pressed on, actually, and that is placed there just for the reason I told you, to alleviate the hub cracking from the high stress point created by the uneven pressure put on that by the spoke.
While I have you here, Terry, although we don't have a picture of it, spend a minute, tell me more about, because I've seen this when I was at your place, the liner of the hub. They're special. And so are the brake shoes. Talk a little bit about the lining of that hub.
Yeah, so the lining of the hub is it's a special. It's not what the standard bike would have. It was a special material. Suzuki screwed them in with flathead screws through the outside of the hub and threaded into the liner, and then they would grind off where the brake pad would meet the liner.
Right.
Now the brake shoe compounds, I have a lot of them, and there's the brake shoe themselves are sand cast in magnesium, and then there's a shoe attached to it, and those would be different compounds too. And Honda really went bananas in the mid 70s with those. Boy, I should have I didn't know we were going to talk about that, but I've got some examples of that. And they did some really amazing things. They riveted, I believe, their liners into the hubs, but they just went really crazy with the inside of that, making them special. And those bikes, between the lightweight of the bike and those special brakes, everything just was 100% contact. They really, you stop one of those and you stop a production bike of the same year, and it's a massive difference.
Big difference.
Yes.
While I have you here, do you have several sets of ribby forks?
No, there were only 12 sets made.
All right. So yeah.
I have one of them, and I wanted it didn't come with Roger's stuff. Right. When I bought all his things, but I asked him, I said, does anybody I'd sure like to find one of those sets. And so he looked around and in about a week's time, maybe less, found me a set in Italy. And he talked the guy into selling them to me, and we have them.
You have photos? You have photos of them? I'm sure you do.
I do. I have a photo of them. Yeah.
Maybe for our next installment, we'll do the ribby front end and talk a little bit more about that. Or, I mean, that's probably a pretty involved thing. Maybe you and I should sit down for an hour someday, and come up with some information on that ribby front end as well. Somebody asked me the other day, I think it was Alan Huie, one of the viewers of the show, who's been to a couple of your events, about will the ribby front end that you have, will you display that on a frame, which I thought was kind of a great idea, that maybe have a mock-up with just a frame and the wheels, or will it be with in this evolution of suspension in the museum?
I think we're going to go. I only have one set of ribby forks, so it has to be one or the other. Okay. What we're going to do, though, is I have a bike, one of Roger's 78 or 79s. We're going to put the ribby front end on it and display the bike with the front end. So we may move the bike, for a while in his exhibit, and maybe we have a whole exhibit planned. Well, you've seen it, of just the history of suspension. And it's going to entail hundreds of artifacts. I mean, I have over 30 sets of works forks just from Yamaha. Forks from DeCoster, from Honda, from all over the place. So It's going to be real extensive, and we'll have a bike like that with that ribby front end on it. Yep.
Terry Good, the International Motocross Museum, scheduled to open in 2025. Terry, I want to thank you again for taking the time to speak to me about that ring and the hub and so much that goes on our favorite bikes to look at in the world. Terry, thanks so much again, and we'll see you in the next installment of It Works For Me.
My pleasure, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. All right, Terry, that went really good. Well, there you go. And it did go really good. I hope everyone enjoyed that segment. Yeah, I just had a little bit of a technical problem there, and I had to go get that sorted out. Before I get to the announcements, and that will be the end of the show, I want to thank Tunnel Mountain Lumber Company. Tunnel Mountain Lumber Company. You know who that is? Bryan Webley, and he sent Susie and I this. This is a beautiful cutting board.
It's gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous, made out of black walnut.
Charcuterie. It's
a charcuterie board. Oh, yeah, you wouldn't cut anything on this, but you put out your cheeses and your fruits. You put your nuts on here, cheeses and fruits, and ooh, that smells delicious. Bryan Webley, thank you so much, and I'm happy that I'm not a politician and that I can take gifts from friends. The announcements this week. We got. Oh no, I got to do the. That's right. The viewer appreciation prize, Susie. I'm going to put you on camera here right now, and you're going to tell us.
And the lucky recipient
is who, Suze?
David Kendig.
David Kendig.
And you'll get one of these awesome Magnolites, courtesy of Amsoil. It's telescopic.
Does the light go on? Turn the light on. I think it does. Twist that little goober there. It goes on. No? There you go.
Watch. Watch out, Tyler. I got the light on.
There you go. Kendig, what's his first name again?
It's David.
Dave Kendig.
Yeah.
Listen, here's what you got to do, brother. You got to go to my personal page, send me your mailing address, and I will get you the light. But I have to have your mailing address. Send it to me on my personal page, okay? And I will get out that mag light, telescopic, from Russell Waters and Amsoil. And now, drum roll, please, I will get to the announcements. Got a big event coming up, and it's coming up soon. Happens June 26th through the 29th, Hodaka Days. And there's a special ride day in between there on the 27th. I just got this announcement in today, so get over to, I'm sure they have a website, and there's a page on Facebook for it, Hodaka Days. It's coming right up. Debbie Burnworth continues on with Scott's legacy. The Burner Memorial Ride happens to be this coming weekend. May 18th, that's in Verona Oaks MX. The SoCal MX Classic continues. The Scott Burnworth Memorial Ride will be happening that day. This is one race you don't want to miss, and it's going to be on Racer Radio. They'll be talking about Scott and all the things that happened at the race that day. They'll be there, and it will be happening with Debbie Burnworth. What else do we have going on here? Oh, how could I forget? You got to ask about our revised sponsorship opportunities. We've got new lower rates for 2025. We've got something that fits everybody's budget. So get a hold of me, and you too will be getting the benefits of Vinco and Bultaco East, Full Circle Racing, Motion Pro, and everybody else. Hey, the show ran a little bit over tonight. We tried to keep it under an hour, but I'm glad I was able to dig up that video. Thank you, Terry Good, for all you do for us here at the show. And thank you to the rest of our sponsors, Preston Petty, Full Circle, Vinco, Sirius Studios, Bultaco East, Racer X, and Motion Pro. That about wraps it up for Vintage Motocross Q&A. Gina, come on, come.
Good job.
Okay.
Oh, hand bone.
You got it, Gene? That wraps it up for Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you next time.